All right, welcome back. Today we have a special guest, and my producer is myself, went on the interweb and found this man's bio kinda on his website. So he is currently the host of the Better Life podcast, founder of Better Life Tribe, the former host of the Bigger Pockets podcast, founder and managing member of Open Door Capital, author of 6 books that have sold over 1 million copies. Husband, father, I'm sure I've missed some things, but Brandon Turner, welcome to the show.
Dude, I am so pumped to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this since you first asked me. I've been literally just excited and waiting because I think you're a cool dude.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And definitely appreciate you coming on. And while we're kind of on that topic, I appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of people listening appreciate just the, the stuff that you've put out content wise. Bigger Pockets podcast. I mean, I remember probably 2012, 2013. I don't remember when you guys started, but around then is when I started listening. And that was the start of completely changing my life. So definitely appreciate it.
Man. I didn't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. By the way, how did all that kind of come about? And did you have any, I guess, I don't want to say dreams, but aspirations of doing a podcast?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So I'll my story real quick. I'll wrap it into that. So I got into real estate, obviously like 20, 21 years old. And then, up till 27, I was just buying houses by myself. My wife and I, buying houses in little multifamily, not a lot. I mean, a couple deals a year. But at 27, I kind of hit like level 1 financial freedom. Like I could basically pay my bills, which weren't that much. And so I quit my job and I was like, well, what do I do next? So I started researching like how to make money online because I like the internet. And so I found like blogging. So I started a blog and then I started listening to a podcast about building a blog, basically. So it was like a podcast on internet marketing, basically. And I listened to probably 100 episodes and I was like, man, I love this whole podcast thing. It was brand new. This idea of podcasting was so new. And so then I ended up, getting friends with Josh Dorkin at Bigger Pockets and took kind of a volunteer. I just started volunteering my time there just to help edit blog posts. And eventually he started paying me some money and eventually it became an actual job, so to speak. And I went to Josh and I was like, dude, this thing called podcasting, it'd be super cool. We should try one. And that's how it happened is I just mimicked that show I was listening to, which is called Smart Passive Income, which is still out there. It's still an internet marketing podcast. And we started a podcast. I set a goal to be a top 100 business podcast in 3 years. And like week number 1, we were like number 5 in business wild. And never dropped below number 10. So that was I completely undershot my expectations there. So
yeah, that's wild. Do you think? I guess are you more interested in real estate or teaching it, or maybe a combination?
I think. Man, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I am interested in marketing. Yeah, marketing, period. I love marketing. In other words, I love trying to so whether that's marketing for real estate deals, meaning like how to find them or how to raise capital, I love the strategy behind that. And then I love the strategy of like how to grow an online business. So either way, it's kind of the same game. I mean, everything's a funnel, everything's metrics and KPIs, and everything's got like the solution isn't necessarily there. You have to find it. So it's always an adventure. So I don't know what I like better. I think I probably still love real estate. A lot of the famous like gurus that are out there and the authors and the speakers, like a lot of guys tell me like that I'm friends with are like, oh yeah, I hate real estate. I just do it because it makes money or I did it at the beginning out of necessity, but I don't really do it anymore. And I'm like, man, I could spend an hour talking to somebody about an FHA loan on a duplex. Like I just love this stuff. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of real estate still.
When do you think that happened? Because obviously I think most people probably know your story. But you started obviously with duplexes, smaller units, and then kind of ventured into sharing information, marketing, all that. So when do you think it was a realization like, oh, you know what? I really enjoy this aspect of sharing information, marketing, everything in there.
Yeah. It's a good question. Like when did I like discover that I loved the teaching side? Is that kind of a good summary?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I remember writing these just really simple, like 4-paragraph, like essays or blog posts when I started this blog called Real Estate in Your 20s. And like I would stay up till 11, 12 at night 1 o'clock in the morning writing this stuff and like building out the blog and making it look nice, and then get up at 4 a.m. because I was so excited to try to do it again. Like it's like I slept the bare minimum for probably 6 months. So that was when I just realized, like, oh, I really enjoy this stuff, and I love the fact that I can give somebody advice and then they do it and it actually changes their life. Unlike, a musician or an actor or whatever, like, not to just, talk down on those people. They're great people, I'm sure. But like, it makes entertainment is cool and it's valuable, and you get entertained for a little bit. But like, I love the fact that as educators, you, I, and other people listening to this, if you can teach somebody about real estate, like you literally change their entire life and the trajectory of their family and their kids and their grandkids for like generations. That is the coolest feeling. And so when I started seeing that come to fruition, and I started seeing people like just take what I say that I'm doing and then they go and do it, it blows my mind and makes me just super grateful to be in this industry.
Yeah. Well, and I asked that question because kind of back to your point of not knowing what you want to do. And I see this a lot with people that get in the real estate, and there's like, and myself and a bunch of buddies talk about this. We all get in the real estate for the time freedom for the most part, right? Time freedom and the money. But then there's an evolution. It's like, okay, start with single family, go bigger, multifamily, commercial, whatever that looks like. And then eventually you get into, there may be some wholesale, or maybe even start with wholesaling, throw that in there. Sure. And then you get into kind of coaching, maybe you're lending money. It's like a typical evolution of real estate investing. So yeah, that's why I was curious, is because it seems like a lot of people are kind of trying to figure out what they're good at, what they like, and they're trying to hit. They're all different businesses, right?
They are very
and I don't
much,
think we talk about that much. It's like it's real estate investing, but then there's a bunch of different businesses within that too.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about real estate is that there's like an infinite amount of ways, or hundreds of ways to invest in real estate. Everything from I could wholesale, I could teach and coach, to everything in between. And so whenever you get bored with one thing, you just add on something new. Like there's no top of the mountain. Like even like, okay, well, I figured out single family houses and I got 50 of them. Okay, well, now what do I do? Well, what if I mastered apartment complexes? Or what if I did mobile home parks or self-storage or industrial? What if I built a city? Like, that's cool. Like you can just keep going, skyscrapers. And then, at some point you realize like, oh, like I can scale my income by getting into the education side, which is a whole lot harder, I think, than the real estate side. I mean, some people maybe are better at it than me. I just think my real estate business is 100 times more simple to run than any of my education companies. Real estate at its core is a very simple business. There's like 12 things you got to do, analyze deals, make offers, do a little networking. It's like the simple stuff. But in education and internet marketing, there's like a billion different things you could do, and you never know what's going to work.
Yep. You've seen probably thousands of people, maybe more than that, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that have wanted to get into real estate investing. And you've seen a lot of people that want, right? Not many people actually do. What's the difference? Maybe top 3 qualities, top 2 qualities of people that actually that hit you up or you've talked to and they actually take action. What is it that gets them there compared to the people that don't do anything?
That's a phenomenal question. So what separates those people who like say they want to get into real estate and they don't, from those who say they want to get into real estate and do? A couple of things. One, I think the pain point for some people is so high that it spurs them to take continual action. In other words, like people who are in generally a cushy job, they like their job, they make good enough income, they can pay their bills. There's not a lot of reason to go and like work every single day toward a real estate financial freedom goal. So number one is like the pain exceeds the level that they want to live with. And therefore they have to do a change. So for me, I worked at a bank. I just hated my job. For a while, I worked at Cold Stone Creamery. Hated that. I hated all the 9-to-5 stuff. I hated the idea of having to wear a suit or tie. I hated all that. Right. So the pain made it every single day me take action. And then the action part would be the second piece of that is it's not hard to buy real estate. It just takes consistency and persistence. And so what I mean by that is like, it's not hard to read a book. If every day you read a chapter, you'd finish a book every week or two. But the problem is most people just don't read. The same thing is true with real estate. It's not hard to buy real estate. It just takes certain actions. And if you do them every day, you'll start buying real estate every month. If if you never did those actions, you'll never buy real estate. So something in some people's brains just give them the ability to just continually say, what is the next action? And then to actually do that thing. If you can just do that, as define the right action and then do the right action and then repeat that process over and over, you can accomplish anything. Like, it's ridiculous how simple and easy business is when you realize that it's just taking consistent action over a long period of time.
Yep. No, that's well said. That's really well said. Now, as you're saying, talking all that, it seems to me like personal development, people that are really into developing themselves and bettering themselves, stick to it too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some people get caught up in the self-development, like, wheel, and they never actually do anything. They just like constantly read books and whatever. But yeah, there's a quote from Jim Rohn, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's like, the level of your success will never exceed the level of your personal development. Like, it's like I said, it's not hard to analyze a rental property. Like, that's not hard. You can learn it in a few minutes. You can learn how to analyze a property. I even have like a 5-day analysis challenge, though. If anybody wants it, go to my Instagram. So like, it's like, you can learn it for free on the internet, how to analyze a deal. Yep. But what's easy to do is easy not to do. What's simple to do is simple not to do. And therefore, if you work on yourself and you start realizing, well, why don't I take action? Why don't I, honor commitments that I make to myself and other people? Why don't I wake up early? Why don't I do and you start working on yourself and those questions, those really like deeper questions, and you solve those issues, then the outcome of like analyzing a deal, then you can actually do the deal. So it's, in other words, it's the symptom that you notice is that you're not analyzing deals. But the illness is something inside our heart and inside of our brains. And so we have to fix the things inside of our brain, inside of our heart, if we want to address the outcome of our wealth, of our relationships, of our spirituality, of everything in our life. What we see, the outcome, is simply a result of having this and this right.
That's good. That's deep. Really deep.
Thanks.
Have to
I don't think I've
re-listen
ever
to
said
that.
it like that before, but yeah, I need to
that was
write
really
a chapter and a book on that.
Yeah, there you go. So I want to I like looking at transitions, people in their lives, transition points, right? So you're at Bigger Pockets. You did a ton of great things there. I don't know how much you can talk about, leaving.
Open
there,
book with that.
What's that? You said you're writing a book?
I'm an open book.
Open book. Okay.
You can talk about whatever you want. I should write a book.
So you left Bigger Pockets, went out on your own. What did that timeline look like? Obviously, it's probably similar to leaving a job, right?
It is, yeah.
So what did that time look like?
Yeah. It's probably a similar story to a lot of people. Like, it was a job. I mean, Bigger Pockets gave me a W-2, or I had a W-2 there. Like, I had equity in the company as well, which is great. But it was still I still worked a number of hours every week. I had like people to report to. It was a career. And so, leaving that, I talked about earlier, the pain, right? Like, the pain has to exceed a certain level for you to actually do something about it. And so for years I knew, I'm not going to stay at Bigger Pockets forever, simply because it's not mine. Yes, I had some equity in it, but it wasn't mine. It was Josh Dorkin's, and eventually it became private equity. He sold the private equity. And so now I'm working for private equity, and I'm like, it's fine. I get to learn. I learned some really good stuff, and I met some really good people. So I knew that it was eventually I need to transition out, but eventually the pain got so high that I started taking action toward leaving. And that started years earlier. And this is a lesson for people, is I started taking steps toward leaving. Really 5 years before I left, because I started Open Door Capital. Like, I started buying bigger real estate deals. I was buying real estate all along, but I got much heavier into it. And so I kind of shifted to a new identity and a new income source before leaving Bigger Pockets entirely. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. You can leave your job and just quit and go and, burn your ships, go all in on real estate. But also, it was really an easy transition, because I was like, well, I already have this new business, and there wasn't like some identity crisis. So like, what am I going to do next? Since I already had it, I just stepped from one boat to the other boat, and I'm just, kept driving it. That was and it wasn't like the pain in terms of they were bad to me in any way. It was just the pain of having a corporate structure in a company that I don't own. And for those who are entrepreneurs at heart, that's painful.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I kind of had similar situation where had a little bit of control, but didn't own anything in the company and
Yeah.
felt the same pain. Like some people don't feel that pain, but it was like,
Yeah.
it's a pain, right? You don't have, I mean, you can kind of call it control, right? You
Yeah.
want control.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's why we all get into real estate. That's why we all live Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's like we want the financial freedom, and that means the ability to do what you want, when you want, where you want, how you want, with whoever you want. And so, there was a few kind of straws that broke the camel's back over at Bigger Pockets. And again, it's not talking bad about the team there. They were amazing people and amazing private equity and all that. But there were moments where I wanted to do something and I was told no, no, we're not going to go that direction. No, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do that. And they're like, no, you can't. We're not going to do that. That's not the direction that the board wants to go. And I'm like, well, then I just couldn't handle it, So I had to go a different direction eventually because I don't like being told no.
Yeah,
it hurts.
Sure. So you've scaled ODC pretty quickly. I think you're closing on $1 billion. Real estate, is that right?
Yeah, we just passed $1 billion. Yeah,
just passed it.
Wild.
That's awesome. And obviously a short time. So how did that happen?
Yeah, we a couple thoughts. One, I met my potential and I realized I was very far away from him. Right. So I saw my potential. I met who I could be with my audience, with my ability, my skill set. And I knew that I was taking the easy way out. I was coasting through life and that wasn't making me happy. I don't know if you're this way. I'm guessing you are, but we get a lot of happiness from growth, right? Like when you're striving and building. Some people just get happy just sitting on a beach all day long for their entire life. I know a guy who just sits on the beach every single day here in Maui and smokes weed and surfs buck naked every day for 40 years. He's been doing that. A lot of people know who I'm talking about because he's kind of a legend here in Maui. Some people are perfectly happy that way. I'm not. So it started with this idea of hey, I saw my potential and I am far away from that. So I want to improve that and get closer to him. Secondly, I set a goal, what that looks like. Well, even before the goal is I defined what does that even look like? I got very clear on what I call my crystal clear criteria, which is what am I going to invest in? What strategy? What property type? What location? What condition of a property? What makes it a good deal? All those questions getting very dialed on what that is. And I said, I want mobile home parks with 100 units, city sewer and water, somewhere in the Midwest, blah, blah, blah. Defined it carefully. Then I set some goals. I said, I'm going to buy $50 million of real estate. Then I worked backwards from that goal to say, well, who do I need to build a team around me to be able to do that? We built the team. And then we said, well, what actions do we have to do on a regular basis to be able to buy $50 million worth of real estate? And so we well, we need to make offers. We need to analyze deals. We need to meet with brokers. We need to have some system for organizing ourselves. EOS is what we ended up using from the book Traction. Okay, so now I've got a North Star of where I want to head. I've got this identity. I've got goals. I've got a team and I've got actions. So then it just is a matter of being consistent and persistent. And we were. And when you have a good system for being consistent and persistent, it just went. And so instead of buying $50 million, which we blew right past that, ended up buying $300 million in that 3-year period. And now in the 3 years since, we're just over $1 billion. So yeah, when you have the right North Star, the right goals, the right team, the right actions, dude, it wasn't crazy hard. And obviously I could scale bigger because I got a big audience. That's the missing piece most people don't have is a large audience that could help fund it. So that's a whole different conversation of why when internet marketing and entrepreneurship through real estate kind of merged together. And that's why guys like Grant Cardone and myself and Pace Morby and others have really scaled to a massive level is just because we have both the internet marketing and that piece of it and the real estate side.
Yep.
That was a long answer to a short question, but
no, it's a great answer. I want to go back to kind of what you were talking about being growth minded. You're a growth minded person. You're happier when you're growing, or you are happier when you're growing. This comes up quite a bit for whatever reason on the show. And the question I always ask is, I won't call it a problem, but I'm working on it. But if we go on family vacation, trip, whatever, if it's 2 days, I'm a zombie. And I think that's related to I'm growth minded and I can't just sit on the beach and ride waves buck naked. So how do you do that? How do you unplug on vacation? Or how
Yeah.
do you get through that? And so you can be
Yeah,
productive.
I think addiction to work, or work is an addiction. It can be, and it is to me. And it's not a bad addiction. I'd rather be addicted to that than meth. But it is an addiction to work. And so it's almost like I need a detox. I've found this is like I need to detox from the habit or the addiction of work and achievement. And so, in other words, when I go on vacation, the first few days are usually actually pretty rough. Like I got to check my phone. I got to do this thing.
Yep.
So I've learned a couple of things. One, I leave my computer at home now almost always. When I go on any kind of trip, I just leave my computer. If I can't do it on my phone, then I don't need to do it. I even sometimes will just like leave I have an iPad. I'll leave that even. And now I have no option but to do that. If I really feel that itch, I should be reading. Like I can read a nonfiction book on a beach and have a great time. And that's still kind of work, but that's what I like to do for fun. That is relaxing to me, is to read a nonfiction book on a beach. So yeah, I struggle with it too. But it's like, I just have to detox for a few days and then I'm usually fine. It's usually like day 4 of a vacation where I'm like, all right, I can calm down a little bit here.
Settled in. Yeah. I'm usually day 3 or 4 too.
Yep.
Sometimes we'll go on, trips that are 3 or 4 days. And by the time we're ready to leave, I'm like, I'm good now. Now we can have fun. So that's funny. I'm glad I'm not the only one here.
Definitely not.
You're obviously a big goals person. Where do you think that came from?
It's a great question, man. Nobody's ever asked me that. I don't know. I mean, I think
good question.
Yeah. I think I'm thinking back to high school. Like, was I goal oriented in high school? I mean, kind of. I guess I would like. So my freshman and my sophomore year, I was a straight like B- student, like B's and C's. And then somebody told me when I was in like the summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school, somebody said that I was ridiculously smart. I think that's the word that you're ridiculously smart. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, no, you really are. And I believed them. And then I never got anything less than an A for the rest of high school. Like literally just junior and senior year was just straight A. Because I said, I'm like, oh, if I'm smart, then I should get A's. So I set a goal, I guess then. I was like, I'm never going to get anything less than an A. And I just got straight A's. So I guess that's maybe where it started there. And ironically, that's less about goals, is it about identity, right? Like I had the identity of a B- student, and therefore I got B-. As soon as I had the identity of an A+ student, I got A's. I think that applies to a lot of areas of life, right? If you have the identity of I'm not a great husband, then you probably won't be a great husband. But it's like, no, I'm a great husband. And so goals are important, but I think more important is identity. And that's actually what I teach a thing a lot called identity-based goal setting. It's where you don't start with a goal, you start with an identity. And so you say like, I am what? And so I am a great husband to my wife. I am patient. I am loving. I am kind. I do what I say I'm going to do every single time when interacting with my wife. Like that's a powerful identity statement. Now, based on that, that's who I want to be. Now I can set some goals and some actions and some habits around that goal or around that identity. But if I start with a goal, I want $1 million. Like that might actually be anti of what we actually want in our heart to become. So anyway, that was another long answer to a short question. But one more funny story about that is I remember, again, I didn't even call them goals. Like it wasn't like a word I used back then. But right after high school, I went to college. And the first day of college, I'm looking out my window of my dorm room, and I see this cute girl out on the grass talking with a friend of mine. And I looked at her and I was like, she's cute. But it was like, far away. But I was like, she's cute. And I said, I'm going to marry that girl. And I literally walked downstairs. I said that out loud. I'm going to marry that girl. I'm not marrying anybody. That's the one. And so I walked downstairs and I went and introduced myself because she was talking to a friend of mine. So I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? Lee. Oh, hey, who's this you're talking with? And 4 years later, I married that girl. So goal setting started young for me. It's worked out well.
Yeah, I want to get back to the goal setting, but I think belief is, I mean, you hit it. Belief and identity controls so much of, I guess, what comes out of us. What are you doing with your kids to instill maybe confidence, belief in themselves, their identity, to help them find their path?
That's a great question. A couple things. I work very hard at like words of affirmation for my kids, but not over the results, but over the work or the action. So in other words, like if Rosie she paints a nice picture, right? Like she paints a picture. I won't say, wow, I love that picture, or that picture looks so good. I'll say something like, wow, I love the hard work.
Oh.
You're good. That was like the worst. Yeah. All right, here we go. So I'm trying to, I praised Rosie on the actions that she put into it. So first of all, I read that in a book a long time ago, and I've made a big push to do that. So I'm encouraging them with words of affirmation around the work and the effort that they do, as to encourage them to be hard workers. So I would say that that's a big piece of it, where I want to instill that confidence in them. Is that, again, I don't want confidence in their ability per se, or like the results. I want confidence in their ability to work hard, the process. So I guess that's probably what I'm doing primarily. Yeah, instead of "you look cute today" or "you're so pretty," which, I want her to know she's pretty. But I try to emphasize more things like, "Man, you sure are loved." Mom and dad love you so much. Same to Wilder, my son.
Yeah. It's man, kids are tough. It's right now our son, who's 7, he's our younger one. Somehow he made the travel soccer team, and he just had practice last night. And like, he was on a rec soccer team, and he plays 3 sports, but he was on a rec soccer team, and he's like middle of the pack. Somehow he made this travel team, and my wife and I are kind of like, what happened here? And he went to practice last night, and there's only 6 kids. He's one of 6. And there's a clear, like, there's 5 really, really good kids, and then it's him. And he hasn't touched the ball for 2-3 months, so that's part of it. But it's very hard as a parent to kind of not get on him. And I want to hear your thoughts, because there's a fine line, right? There's a line where it's like, you can create, I don't want to say trauma, but you can kind of be hard on them and create something that sticks with them, maybe in a negative way, but may turn out positive down the road, right? Might be a chip on their shoulder. Or you can go the other route and just be supportive, know it's a process, and just give them confidence. So it's tough to kind of pick that road. What do you do?
I mean, I don't want my kids to be like trophy kids, right? I mean, like everyone gets a trophy, right? So I want to deliver the hard truth of things like my kids tend to get kind of arrogant sometimes. Like, I don't know if your kids ever like, I'm the best at this. Like, and I'm like, no, actually you're pretty middle of the pack. Like, I try to be pretty honest with them, and I try to do it nicely and lovingly. There's a line from Bluey, the show Bluey, which we watch a fair amount, where Bluey is trying to draw a picture and getting really frustrated with how she's drawing. And her mom says, "Hey, it's pretty good for a 7-year-old." And so I use that actually line all the time with my kids. I'm like, now Rosie's 8, but I'm like, it's pretty good for an 8-year-old. Like, I'm not saying, oh, you're the best drawer ever or the best or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good for an 8-year-old. But you have a lot of room to improve. I think that's helping. But I think, being honest, I think there's a great quote from Dan Sullivan that says, all progress begins with the truth, by telling the truth. And in fact, in REIOS, which is a system that I teach inside the Better Life Tribe, step number 1 of this kind of 6-step process, which we can talk about if you want to, or we don't have to. But step 1 is literally called tell the truth. Like, until we're honest with where we're at in life, we can't move past that. And so if my kid thinks that they're the best at something, or if they think they're the worst at something, either way, if it's not true, it's hard to expand beyond that and to do it. So we have to be honest with ourselves. And I need my kids to have the self-reflection and self-awareness needed to be always honest with themselves. And I think that begins with, some lessons are caught, not taught. So they need to see that I'm honest with myself. I need to be honest with myself about how I'm doing with things. And then hopefully they pick up that as well.
Do you think do you think you have a chip on your shoulder from being a kid or whatever to kind of prove something to somebody that makes you, who you are? Why are you so driven, I guess?
Yeah, I always joked that, like, every successful entrepreneur I know was a fat kid in middle school. Like, it's not everyone. I mean, some people had other problems, but like, I was one of the fat kids in middle school. And so I'm still trying to show my middle school and high school friends that I'm cool enough to sit at the cool table. And like, it's funny in a way, but it's also very real. I think that there's definitely a chip on my shoulder that I wasn't good enough. I'm not smart enough, not good looking enough. Terrible self-esteem issues when I was a kid. So I think everything is just driving towards that, of trying to prove that I am worth something, which is not great. And though at the same time, I think I'm doing a pretty good job at building good self-esteem for my kids, maybe even too good. And that's why they get a little cocky sometimes. They have such an amazing, simple life, right? Like, I mean, they live in Hawaii, barefoot all the time on the beach, like everything's handed to them. They're, rich little kids. And so like, it's almost like, is that going to make them less driven later on? Like the chip on my shoulder is what made me driven and helps me identify with other people who are struggling. How do I make sure that they have that? I don't have a great answer for that yet.
I struggle with that same thing. I mean, there are times where I'm like, one of my kids will do something and I'm like, okay, I can either somewhat ignore it and create a small chip on their shoulder, or I can kind of coddle them and be like, oh, that's absolutely great. Right. It's a weird space. Cause I think you're right. The fat middle school kid or whatever. I mean, I think we all have anyone that's at least somewhat successful somewhere, something, right? You've got a chip on your shoulder to get you where you are. For me, it was, I was basically season D student. Sports, I was always middle of the pack, and I've always been like, I still play, I just played basketball last night. I'm 42. Why am I doing that? I'm still trying to prove something, right?
Yes.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing that it's like, how do I create that chip on the shoulder with my kids?
Yeah, I fantasized for 20 years about coming back to my high school reunion, my 20-year high school reunion, and be like, "What now?" And then it was
private jet.
It was last year, and I didn't even go. It's just funny, like I didn't even go. And I mean, reunions aren't what they used to be, right? Back in the day, like my mom's reunion, they're having their 50-year anniversary or 50-year reunion coming up here in a few months. She's gonna have more people at her reunion than I'm sure we had at ours. Yep. Ours was at a bar, and I bet you 20 people showed up out of 400. But still, like I had fantasized about that for years of like, I'm going to show up and then they'll see that I'm valuable and I'm worthy. And of course, it's so silly to say it, but and now that that's over, it's like, well, I guess that really didn't really matter. But yeah, I don't know. There's still a fat middle school kid right in here that I'm still trying to prove something to somebody.
Hey, well, that's what keeps you going. So it's good that you know that.
It's good fuel.
Yeah. I guess kind of, because I wrote this down, might as well talk about it. It's kind of transitioning to it. What is purpose and what is your purpose?
What is purpose? That's a deep question. What is purpose? I guess I would put that as like I'm put on earth for a reason, both an outwardly and an inwardly reason. And what I mean by that is like I am a believer, I'm a Christian guy, so I believe that God has a purpose for my life, and there's a reason that I'm here, and there are reasons that I'm here. And I'm not going to know what most of those are. I think one of the reasons is to have kids, like Rosie and Wilder are here. That was a purpose. What is mine though? I often say it's to like teach. I actually worked at a workshop one time on this, and it was like this: demonstrate, showcase, and educate people that life is meant to be lived abundantly. And that's kind of my purpose, is to show people that life could be lived abundantly. And that's in all areas of life, but includes my spiritual life, includes my financial life, includes my fitness and health. Like a person can live in abundance with all of those things. You don't have to pick and choose. And there is a framework for how to get there. There is a process needed to produce the result that you want. And so my purpose is to demonstrate, to showcase, to educate people on how to do that. So that's a purpose of my life. And then it's ultimately, if my kids grow up, good, then I won. Like that's it.
Yep. No, it's awesome. Great answer. So you've built multiple companies. Obviously you were technically working at Bigger Pockets, but you've built multiple companies since then. At what point, I'm assuming you started off with those as working in the business to a certain extent. When did you transition to working on the business?
Yeah, different businesses, different ways. I've done for sure. But like Open Door Capital, I started it from the beginning as if I didn't live in it. I was like, or didn't work in it. I built it right, the way that I'd want to build a company. and I put a lot of thought into how to do that. Is like, in other words, like I was designing an engine, but I was not a part of that engine. Now, that's not entirely true because, like, obviously it's my face and my videos and Instagram and TikTok and all that has made me raise a lot of capital. So I am a piece of the engine in that way. But I made sure I was only doing the things that was vital for me. And yes, there's been many times I'm up working late on a website that I shouldn't be building, for the company when I should be outsourcing it. But generally speaking, I was never really part of Open Door Capital from an operating standpoint. I hired a CEO from the beginning. Now, when it comes to like Better Life, I did hire a COO from the beginning, but I've been actively involved every single day in strategy and growth and with product and what it's going to look like, and even design and the colors and the logo. I've been involved in all of it. So, and part of that is just because that's what I love to do. Like I enjoy that stuff. I launched a mortgage company called Better Life Ref, like real estate funding, it's short for, but Better Life Ref, I barely work. I mean, maybe an hour a month on that project. But that's actually one of the more profitable businesses that I run right now. And so, because again, I hired somebody to run it from the beginning, and I hire from the top down. You can hire from the bottom up when you have no money. And what I mean by that is you got to do the smallest roles, and then you slowly outsource, the bookkeeping and your calendar management. And you just kind of like slowly or as fast as you can elevate yourself to a leadership position. But the other way, if you have money, you can build from the top down. You hire an amazing CEO or COO or director or whatever you want to call it, an executive, and they build out the company below them. And so you build from the top down. Like you hire the top guy, they hire the VPs hire their teams, the directors, and the directors hire their, whatever frontline workers. Either plan works, but top down is more risky, but way quicker. That's how like Silicon Valley would build a company, is top down. I like doing it that way.
Yeah. So obviously you have a reach to find top quality talent, right? How can that translate to the regular Joe trying to find their CEO or COO or whatever that doesn't have the reach like you?
Yeah, I mean, at some level, like even like I'm looking for I'm looking for a CEO right now, actually, kind of like a CEO of my CEOs, essentially. And like I'm not even going to my audience. Like maybe I'll post something about it, but I'm hiring a headhunter to go out, and find somebody. So so even like even having a massive reach in an audience doesn't guarantee me good people. That said, the leaders of most of my companies came from my network in some way. Not all of them from my audience, though. Like my guy leading the 50, Matt Francois, right? Matt was just a guy that I saw working at a outdoor fine dining restaurant thing that they have here in Maui. And I just got to know him. We became buddies. And then when I launched the 50, I was like, oh, this guy would be really good at running these events. And so that's where what I mean by that is like it's not necessarily your audience, like the internet audience. It's your network around you. And it's having the mentality, like a great CEO. Not that I'm a great CEO in any way, but a great CEO is a talent scout. Everybody they meet, they're kind of running them through a filter. Like, could I ever work with this person? Like, could I help this person and they help me and we work together? Like almost every single person I meet, I mean, maybe every single person I meet, I have that question in my head is, could this person someday be part of my world? And I'm always adding people to lists, potential lists of, oh, this could be a really good person someday, or I really like the way they work, or nope, never going to work with that guy. And it's honestly one of the reasons I started the 50 is because I just like see what other people are doing and who's doing cool stuff. And already we've seen some guys in the group that are starting to work together now. It's because like you get to see how people work and you're like, oh yeah, I like the way that guy works. Oh, I think I like his strategy. I like whatever. So yeah, getting into that mentality of everybody is a potential hire. And so just screening everybody for what you could do for them and what they could do for you. And yeah, 1 and 1 can make 3 when you have the right people.
Yep. No, that's a great point. And I've heard that too. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was another real estate investor that was talking about someone was complaining they couldn't find top quality talent to hire. And he was like, do you go out to restaurants to eat? Do you ever run into a great waiter or waitress?
Yeah.
You go to Best Buy, like you run into people all the time that are probably a talent. You just don't look at them that way. You're not, like you said, always actively recruiting, which is awesome.
Dude, one part at the 50 we did in Seattle that you couldn't make because of the flights and Delta and all that. But we did an underground tour in Seattle, which is basically Seattle was built like a whole like 20 feet lower than it actually is today. And there's a whole reason for that. But basically like every first floor of our building you see is actually the second floor. and you can go down and into like the basement sidewalks of all the cities in downtown Seattle. So anyway, it's cool. People can look it up on YouTube. But the hosts we had, like our tour guide, was this like ridiculously cheesy, funny, outgoing, insane kind of a character. He's wearing a purple bathrobe. And he was so funny and entertaining, and it was like just cheesy jokes and all this. And the whole time, like everyone in the group was like, this tour would be like decent, but this guy made it incredible. Such an A player, right? Mm-hmm. And every guy in that room and every person in that tour, we were all thinking, how do we use this guy in our business? Like, how can we hire him? Because he was so good. And we passed another tour group while we were on our tour, another tour group, like, the one that went 30 minutes after us. And they're being led by this dude. And he's just got this giant mask on his face, and he's walking down the road, and we kind of hear him like talking to his group. And he's like, and over here, you can see and you can't even hear it through through the mask, but he's like, yeah. And over here, there's a window over here. And it was just like, oh, we struck gold. We got the right guy. But we had we're just constantly on the lookout for that. And that guy is the right guy for something. I don't know what. There's a woman at the coffee shop here I just went to like an hour ago before getting on this call. And she's been there for years. And every time I interact with her, I go, I need to hire her someday. I just don't know where to put her. But she's phenomenal. And she's probably making $12 an hour right now. Like, I guarantee you I can find a place to use her. I just haven't figured it out yet. But I will someday hire her because she's just a rock star.
Sounds like you have two candidates for your CEO of CEOs.
I might. Though, that's a great point, though. Yeah, the bathrobe one, I think that guy could do it. We'd have a lot of really corny dad jokes in our meetings. It'd be great. But yeah, it's just trying to filter through, and like I just keep track of them in my head, and you never know who's going to pan out. So one more point on that is, I'm a big believer in setting like a organizational chart, like creating an org chart for your company for where you want to get to. And that way, then in your head, you know what roles you have to fill. And you might not have the money for it right now or the time, or you're not going to build it this year. But build your org chart, put yourself in every one of those roles, but at least you know what it is. Hey, I'm the CEO. I have a COO. I've got a director of acquisitions. I've got a finance manager. I've got a, property manager. I've got all these roles. And then right now I'm all of them. But then when you find that person who you're like, oh, this person, they could be amazing at the property management role. Now you can see that because you've already defined it.
Yep. No, that's a great point. I went to a mastermind. I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah, probably 3 years ago. And that was one of the activities that we did was draw your org chart. And at the time I had, I had employees, but they were all like maintenance guys at each storage facility I had, but I was done within like 20 seconds with my org chart. Everyone else in the room was like trying to draw it up for like 20 minutes. I'm like, what's taking so long here? But then it made me think like, oh, you know what? I'm still doing, I don't remember now, but I'm still doing this and this and this, and didn't realize how much I was still working in the business till I actually went through that activity. So it's a great point.
Yeah, it's a great workshop to do, kind of a practice to draw your org chart for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get the last couple questions, do you have a morning or daily routine?
Yeah, sort of. So I wake up every morning, and this is a little in flux right now because I'm in the middle of a move, but I always track my habits and my goals. So I reread my goals. I have 3 goals every quarter, and then I have usually 9 to 12 habits that I'm tracking. And so like every morning, first thing I do is I just pull up my habit tracker, and which is literally right here with me. I usually carry it with me too. And I pull it out, and I just say, oh, did I go on a date with Heather? Check. Yesterday, did I eat perfectly healthy? Like the way that I call it food integrity. Like, did I eat the way that I want to eat? Dash means no. Check means yes. Did I go on a date with my daughter, Rosie, or Wilder? Dash, didn't do it. Did I analyze a real estate deal? Check, I did. Did I meet with at least one member of my team? Check. So I track this. And that way, I set a goal, like a number, a target for each one of those things. So I want 2 dates with my wife. I want 1 date with Rosie. And Wilder. I want 6 deals analyzed. Did I shut my phone off at 6 p.m. like I said I was going to do? Yes, no, I'm going to do that 5 days a week, whatever, right? So now every morning it takes less than a minute, but I know whether I'm doing the right actions that I've defined or not. I know where if I'm on track or off track with the daily work that produces the result that I want to get. So that's a huge piece of my morning routine. I also do a little bit of reading, both like spiritual reading, like a Bible chapter, and then usually try to do some nonfiction, like a chapter of a nonfiction book, whatever I'm reading. Like right now, I'm working through a second time through Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell, which is phenomenal. So reading maybe a chapter of that, usually stretch for a little bit, and that's my morning routine.
That's awesome. Are you an early riser, or is that just kind of just before the family wakes up?
I'm like a 6 a.m. guy.
Yeah.
So it's not like a crazy 4 a.m. guy. What about you?
I'm 6. Listen, I've tried 5. I've tried 5:30. I'm stuck on 6. I can't. There's no point, because then I'm just mad all day long. Yeah. And then I got to go to bed at like 9.
That's what it is. You go to bed too. Like people are funny who are like, oh, I wake up at 3:30. I'm like, okay, good for you. You go to bed at 7:30. Like why are we bragging about it doesn't matter, right? Like what matters is the amount. I want people to break. I get 8 hours of sleep at night. That impresses me, that you get 8 hours of sleep at night. Because that's actually way more important than waking up at 3:30 or 5:30 or 7:30 is how much sleep you get. That said, what I was finding, and this is just, you can identify with this, you've got kids, is the earlier I wake up, therefore the earlier I go to bed. And the earlier I go to bed, the more similar bedtime I'm going to have to my kids, which is, fine. But if I go to bed the same time as my kids, what does that mean I'm missing out on? Time with my wife, like alone time. We don't get a lot of alone time with young kids. And so I found when I started waking up at 4:30, 5:30, I don't get any one-on-one time with Heather. It's just, there's none, because I'm just in bed. And so, for the sake of my marriage now, I'm 6 o'clock. That's usually pretty good. I get about an hour at night. Kids go to bed at 8:30, 9. I go to sleep by 10:30. That works.
I'm basically the same. Only 6 hours later. Yeah, it's funny. I saw, Mark Wahlberg. His schedule's insane, but I did see where he goes to bed at like 5 p.m. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you're on a whole nother planet. Like, you're not even with your family. You're with your family from like 3 to 4, and that's it. Not what I want to do, but
not what I want to do either. Yeah. Silly.
All right. Last couple questions here. What's one thing that you're better at than everybody else?
I don't know.
There's a bunch of things apparently.
No. I'm trying to, everything that comes to mind, I'm like, oh no, that guy's way better than me. I'm pretty darn good at frameworks, like BRRRR. Like I invented the phrase BRRRR, which is now kind of like a popular thing, and house hacking. I have a thing called the stack that I teach, RAIOS, the system that we teach. Like I'm good at like frameworks like that. But again, I'm not the best at it. Dan Martell, I think, is actually better at frameworks, but I'm pretty darn good at frameworks. And I love book titles. Every day I say a phrase, like randomly throughout the day, I'll be like, oh, that's a book title. That's a book title. I'm a big fan of book titles, which sounds like a weird skill set to have, but I'm like,
listen, I need somebody for podcast titles, because I'm the one that's doing it. I hate it. I'm like, what do I write now?
Well, I'm a cheap hire, so $12 an hour, but I need to have benefits. So if you can get me health insurance, man, I'm yours.
Perfect, you're hired. I was gonna say something. Anyways, no. So I like this question because it's funny, and obviously I've gotten to know you a little bit, but whenever I interview somebody through the show, I can usually answer that better than they can. And I would say you're really good at delegating.
Oh, thanks. I'm pretty good at delegating. I agree.
Yeah.
I once heard a billionaire. A billionaire once said, like, somebody asked him why he's successful, and he said, it's because I'm a quitter. And the guy was like, what do you mean you're a quitter? He's like, I'm a quitter. I'm the biggest quitter you've ever met. But what do you mean by that? He's like, I quit everything I do. If there's a task on my plate, it won't be there in the future. I'm going to quit that job, and I'm going to give it to somebody else who's going to be better at it and enjoy it. And I'm going to move on to something else, and I'm going to quit. And so I've kind of taken that approach to life, is like pretty much every single thing I do, I'm desperately trying to never do it again. I mean, like everything. I'm talking like dishes and meal, and not that I'll get it out of everything, but my brain is always working that way. Yeah. Even detrimentally, like how so with my parenting, how could I get like, what if I hired a nanny? And I'm like, no, stop. I have to like tell myself to stop, but I will think through ways to like, how do I not have to tuck my kids in at night? What if I had a robot that could tuck my kids, constantly? So, I just have that mentality that everything could be outsourced. And the reality is it can't. You can't outsource your push-ups or your love and relationships, but a whole lot more things can be outsourced.
Doesn't want a second husband.
Yeah, she doesn't, but I'm working on it. The other day I was like, what if we got like a second wife? Like just cook, clean, hang out with the kids, do our laundry, just like a second wife. They just, missing one of the privileges. And then Heather can just be like the fun wife. And then we have the work wife. And she's like, what are you talking about? No, that's what I do. That's my job. And I'm like, I know, but imagine how much free time you'd have. And she's like, well, what would I do with it? I'm like, I don't know. We'd like sit on the beach all day. And she's like, I'd be bored to death. I'm like, okay, fine. Go do your laundry.
Yeah, right.
That's how it is. Yeah, it's a good trait, but it can be taken too far. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I completely relate to that because I probably don't do it as much, but there's definitely times where I'm like, I need to outsource listening to my wife to her complaints. Like,
yes,
I need someone that looks like me that can just stand here. Yep. I could go, be happy in my own space while she vents.
Dude, we're not that far away. Once AI like ChatGPT gets integrated into iMessage with the iPhone, then you just have conversations. Your chatbot starts having conversations with your spouse, and you just tell your chatbot how to react. And it can read. I mean, this is so coming. This is going to be here any day now.
Yep.
It can go through every message you ever sent ever on iMessage and see every single thing you have ever said to anybody. It'll learn perfectly. This is so good. I don't know why this has never been talked about. It'll learn exactly how you communicate with each person individually. So it'll know how you talk to your wife versus how you talk to your boss or your employee or whatever. And then it takes over your texting. And then you never have to text ever again.
That's wild.
It's coming, man.
What's funny? You say that, and I'm going to say this now as we're recording. You sent a text. This was a few months ago. But me, Jeff, and Mike Ketchen, we all got the same text from you around the same time. And one of us was like, I think one of us said something to the other in the group chat. And we all were like, is this AI Brandon? Or is this actually Brandon said the same?
What did I say? Do you remember? I'm curious.
I don't remember. It was the same exact thing. Like, hey, hope everything's well. Just checking in, something like that. So yeah, we were going to test it and give you different answers.
That's funny. It was not AI, but it may have been a copy paste. I'm actually pretty sure. I once heard a great tip. That's actually a good tip from somebody. I heard this from Jordan Harbinger. I think is his name on the Jordan Harbinger podcast. But he said every day in his phone, he just scrolls way, way back on his text messages and then just sends like a, hey, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Anything I can help you with? Message to like 5 people. And so I don't do that every single day, but I try to do it quite often where I just like force network, but I scroll way back to see who I've talked to. And I'll just send like 3, 4, 5 messages of, hey, just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well today. And it just reignites a relationship with somebody that maybe you haven't talked to in a few months. So I definitely try to do that with all the people like in the 50. I try to do it with people at, all my leaders, my companies, even some of the employees at my companies. It can get a little overwhelming when you have, you have 500 conversations going at one time, but we all do that. So.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's and I know you're running low on time here.
You're fine.
No, that's a great point. Just especially if you're a business leader, right? Because there are times where you lose touch with an employee or, a manager or whatever. And you need to check in. You need to keep that relationship going.
Yeah, it's true. I think, and sometimes it's just as simple as a quick text, like, "Hey, how you doing? I just want you to make sure you know that I'm
thinking about you.
Thinking about you. Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
But
2 more questions. What's next? What's next for you?
I'm continuing to build these companies. I launched a new thing because, Better Life Tribe is for existing investors that are kind of like in the middle of their career trying to build. The 50 is for guys that are like millionaires and full-time, financially free, that kind of level. But I never had anything for the complete newbie. So I've been building that out. It's called First Deal. I literally paid $12,000 to buy the domain name firstdeal.com, which is kind of insane. But I really like a good domain name. So firstdeal.com, that's kind of a pet project right now for me. I'm going to keep trying to grow that. Just help people get their first deal. We just moved to a new house 6 blocks away. So we have 4,000 boxes around our house to try to sort through. Not quite, but it feels like it. And that's going to take the better part of a year, I bet, just to get my house to where I want it to. It took 5 years to get the last house where I wanted it. I'm constantly tweaking it. So this one's going to take a long time. So that's what's next for me.
Once you're finished, then it's time to move.
Yeah. And I'm having a baby. We're pregnant and due in December. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, congrats. So obviously you don't want to give out your phone number, which I think it was the last show some guy tried to. I was like, well, you may want to stop there. But if anyone wants to reach out to you, want to learn more about the Better Life Tribe, your podcast, whatever, where can they find you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super active in my Instagram DMs still, so you can always DM me anything on Instagram. I'll usually see it. I don't always see every single one because like it spam filters a ton of messages for some weird reason. Yeah. Anyway,
Awesome.
that's
Cool.
Instagram DM Beardy Brandon. So beard with a Y at the end.
Awesome. Well, definitely appreciate you coming on. This has been an awesome show. A lot of golden nuggets here, and yeah, man, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.